but I think we are going to see the short form content bubble start to approach a place where it's going to burst.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast brought to you by IndiePRO.io.
What's up, Indies? Welcome back to the Creative Juice podcast. This is a few episodes in our end of the year arc, and I'm so excited to reflect back on 2024 and look ahead into 2025 with you all. In this episode, we do these annually. We're going to talk about some of our predictions for music marketing, the music business, the music industry, and things that we think might be coming up in 2025. I'm your host, Jack McCarthy, and with me today is Circa. Cirque, what's up? I hope you're excited to hear some of my predictions on this episode for what 2025 might look like.
Quite excited. It's good to be here. And yeah, it's one of my favorite times of year when it comes to podcast episode topics. I can't wait to hear what you're thinking. Hope it doesn't overlap with what I'm thinking.
I'm definitely curious. I feel like you and I often come at these predictions from different angles, but, you know, all kind of reaching the elephant from the same place, if you know what I mean.
That old turn of phrase, reaching the elephant from the same place.
It's not a phrase, is it?
Just like my grandpappy used to say.
I think this is going to be a good one. I'm really excited. Cirque and I are coming at these totally blind with each other. I didn't share my predictions with him ahead of time, and he didn't share his predictions with me. So I think this is going to be fun. Excited to dive into this with you guys and hopefully give you some insight into some of the things that we're seeing and some of the things that we're thinking about. And the first one that I want to bring up today is AI. Everyone's favorite topic over the last few years. We talked about it on last year's predictions for 2024, and we'll link to that episode in the show notes in case you want to listen back and be like, how much did these guys get right? Where did they miss? Where did they hit? And where did they fall kind of in the middle? I think what we're going to see in 2025 is a continued ramping up of AI tools in music across the board, but especially as it applies to marketing. And why I think this is, look at your marketing toolkit today. Even something as simple as looking at your Facebook ads manager, you'll see AI becoming more and more sprinkled in there, both in ways that we can control and in ways that we can't necessarily see. Things like the enhancements that have come with ad creative, the touch-ups that Facebook is doing now seemingly automatically and by default that we need to turn off. I think we're going to be seeing more and more of that. Facebook's AI copy that's ended up in the ads manager has gotten better than it was when we started seeing it roll out in like May, June, when it was like really bad and I was like, turn it off at all costs. Mm-hmm. Just a couple days ago, I was reviewing an ad account for a client where it was incidentally turned on and the copy actually wasn't that bad and it was performing decently, which was really interesting. And so I think we're going to see more and more AI tools be merged into just general digital marketing, and the smart music marketers, smart digital marketers that learn to utilize these tools faster are going to be the ones that get an edge on using them. And to kind of look back on 2024, one thing that we talked about in last year's predictions was music production in AI. And I had mentioned, like, I think we're going to see a world in 2024 where Splice, you know, you can tell it like, oh, I want this kind of kick, I want loops in D minor, and I want a snare to sound like this, and I want to use this kind of instrumentation, and it would give you custom sample packs. We didn't quite get there, but where we did get, like, for example, in the world of Splice, which is a music production tool with a sample library, we did get to a place where you can now filter by genre, and you'll get custom packs of samples built for you based on everything inside of Splice's library. And what's really cool is now you can even upload a loop of your own and it will match samples to it. So we didn't quite hit my prediction there, but I think we are getting closer, and that kind of lends credence to this idea of AI continuing into our toolkits across the board in music. Cirque, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of concur with all that. No arguments here. I think it's important to note that Facebook has been a machine learning first ad platform since its inception, right? The auction itself is a set of complex machine learning models.
For sure. Yeah.
So it's just a full circle moment for Facebook ads for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And that's good to mention. And I think, that kind of brings us to a point of underlining what I said about like some things that we'll be able to see and control and manipulate and other things that we won't. You know what I mean? Like AI is going to become more and more integrated into the work that we do and the tools that we use in ways that we won't have control over.
Yeah. Agreed. Man, I could add some color to the comments here, but I don't want to step on what will eventually be my predictions. But yeah, I do think continuing to see AI be integrated into the tools that we use. I think what we've seen so far is it's very elementary and even just poorly executed. Things like Apple Intelligence come to mind as like very poorly executed implementations of AI. I think you're going to see legacy companies like Apple sort of miss the point and even maybe slip into irrelevance. I think that we're going to see a major sea change in dominant sort of powers in tech based on who is able to really ascertain the opportunity accurately versus who sort of misses the forest for the trees, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I forget who said this, but they were talking about like first movers and people that invest heavily into a technology being the ones that end up getting slaughtered because they put all of their capital into it and then everybody else comes up behind them, rides the wave, and overtakes them. And that concept definitely comes to mind here.
Well, it's like Apple has had a few big misses, really starting from when they sort of took responsibility for everyone's like preferences when it comes to privacy with iOS 14 and decided to become this like privacy first company. It's funny because like in the crypto world, like it's sort of a meme or a trope that like if you have a crypto protocol that's where its focus is like privacy, that it's essentially going to zero because like nobody cares. And I think this insistence that people really care about their privacy is sort of not supported by the evidence of people's like behaviors and actions.
Yeah.
I don't think like people actually care that much, but that's all secondary to the point that like ever since that era, the iOS 14 era, Apple's had a few big swings and misses. One being Apple Vision Pro, which I think I would count as a big miss. I think that Meta Quest 3 like still dominant despite Apple trying to like make a strong entry into that world.
Yeah.
But then also with Apple Intelligence in iOS, I think that like people don't really care if they can generate emojis with AI. That's kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
And having generative text in like integrated into your like text messages and your emails, like sure, convenient maybe, but that's again, I think broadly missing the point of generative AI is capable of, especially like agentic AI. And so I think, yeah, like Apple's going to see some trouble because they continually try to do their version of something that's emerging and sort of missing the point a little bit or doing it badly, thinking that they can do no wrong because they are Apple. And I just said that to say that you're going to see a shift in the incumbents, I think. And Meta's like Zuckerberg had a renaissance. Like there's
I know.
a complete renaissance of his public image.
Dude, he's so excited about AI. Like just seeing the way that he talks online is really interesting. Like watching his persona is interesting to me.
So Facebook was one of the primary investors in the open source library PyTorch. So there's two major libraries that you would use as an artificial intelligence engineer if you're like constructing models. One is TensorFlow and the other is PyTorch. TensorFlow is Google's and PyTorch is largely thought of as Facebook's. And PyTorch is the one that everyone prefers. It kind of won. So they've been working on this for a long time, long before the LLM hype came about with GPT. And it's just cool to see that sort of full circle moment. And I think we'll continue to see it. I mean, the fact, Zuckerberg is kind of like the savior character for open source AI, whereas OpenAI is like the empire and Zuckerberg is kind of the rebels.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
And Facebook is the rebels. Yeah, with Llama and all that. So releasing open source models, open source weights. They're doing open source text to video generation soon to compete with OpenAI's Sora. There's just a lot going on the Facebook Meta side of things. And I think we're going to continue to see them win. And hopefully they're able to, I think that the music industry has largely lacked a solid partner in tech, someone who's really looking out for how to integrate music as a product back into the lives of everybody in a way that's like is different from what Spotify is already doing. Hopefully we see that from one of these firms.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. And actually, it's sort of a nice segue into the next two predictions that I have, actually, which zoom us in a little bit to talking about us as music marketers and you all as people that are marketing your music if you're listening to this. And that has to do with tools and how they're used and how they're built and how the people that are building them are thinking about them. And I had two sort of predictions and ideas about this going into 2025, just based on like discourse and conversations that I've been having and the way that I'm seeing new platforms get developed and stuff like that. And number one, talking about like integrations and how things are connected together. I kind of can't believe that I'm bringing this up, but there's been so much conversation that I've had with artists over the last year about people being excited. This is gonna blow your mind, dude. About people being excited about Shopify because, and really only because, in a few instances of chats that I've had, because of its integration with Spotify, meaning like this is the platform where I can have my merch showing on the place where people listen to my music. I don't really care about the merch or the e-commerce side at all otherwise, but I'm now interested in this because it has a home inside of Spotify for me. And so I say that to say, I think in 2025, we're going to find more integrations between Spotify and other platforms like Shopify, and that we'll see artists become interested in generally things that would have been good for them to be interested in anyway because of that. And, I kind of, in some ways, I question how effective that will be. In other ways, I kind of celebrate it because I'm like, great, cool, people are going to get to the party because of this.
Yeah. You as an artist, right? Let's say you're at like a holiday dinner with your extended family and one of your little cousins or even one of your big cousins, right? Like, let's say an older person is like learning guitar and you've been like playing guitar for decades and they're talking to you about things that they're learning, but it's like, it's not particularly interesting to you because it's from this place of like, hey, you're just starting out. Like, this is interesting to you, but it's like, in 10 years, you'll look back and think like, well, that wasn't that interesting. It's like sort of like that, where it's like artists are getting into e-commerce because this is available, but it's actually not that bullish. It's actually not that cool. It actually kind of sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's just not interesting. It's not, I don't find it particularly helpful.
Well, it's a bit of the missing the forest for the trees moment in my mind when this comes up. It's like, oh, I'm glad that you're tasting a little bit of what could be possible. Now here's the buffet,
It is cool. I think like having Shopify products on your artist profile, which is probably in terms of like the different screens you could end up in on the Spotify app, it's got to be bottom of the barrel, right? Like whoever ends up on your artist profile and is actually looking through it, like very rarely, probably. Yeah. It's probably not prime real estate. Being able to put your products there, meh. Being able to put your products on countdown pages, which Spotify introduced late this year, that's a little bit cooler.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, it catches my interest a little bit more. But in general, yeah, I also think that Shopify is like ripe for disruption. Their pricing model has been particularly rapacious over the last 2 years. They keep playing around with pricing in very annoying and opaque ways.
Yeah, they really do.
Now they're playing around with like integrations. We had some trouble over the last year where we had to rewrite our entire like integration stack for this Indie CRM and Shopify, because Shopify arbitrarily in the middle of the night, without really telling any of their partners about it, decided to limit personally identifiable information for certain integrations, and then didn't publish any help documentation about why they're doing it, what it means, how to do it the right way. Just very annoying to lots of their integration partners. And that's just, I don't know, it's late stage empire kind of shit. It's like what Apple's doing, right? It's like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. And I mean, like, that's looking at Shopify under a microscope, I think, but it definitely underlines the point here. And I hope what you guys take away from this integrations conversation is when you see shiny things connecting to other shiny things, or just new stuff connecting to other stuff that you generally like, you know, I encourage you in the new year to then look at it and think about how it might benefit you from the whole, full 360 view of your music career, because it's the dent in the armor, or the scratch in the armor that might break open a whole new way of marketing, a whole new set of tools or strategies that you could use if you've never used them before. And so whether that's Shopify and Spotify's integration or Spotify's new integration with another thing in 6 months, that's the helpful way to start thinking about it. And I hope that's where the conversation starts to go. And at a second level of this, which is kind of like the next prediction that I had, is this is a questionable one. This comes with like a word of caution, is like, I don't know how useful some of this is going to be. In fact, I think a lot of it isn't going to be useful, and you might be wise to ignore it. I think we're going to see like more and more consolidation of marketing tools, right? We've seen this over years now, right? MailChimp went from being an email marketing platform to all of a sudden, like, you can make social posts from it and also boost those posts. And it's like, well, I never asked for that. I just wanted a great email marketing platform. But now I'm getting all of this stuff. And the problem with that, especially in music, is we get these tools that are supposedly built for musicians when they're really not. And I think it's worth a healthy dose of caution when you get presented with new things or an all-encompassing, all-in-one thing that started out as a very specialized set of tools. I'm just seeing more and more of it. I mean, my email inbox even gets blown up with like, look at all the new stuff inside of your text marketing platform. It's like,
Yeah.
You're probably not doing all of those things well, so why not just do one? And yeah, so I think like the consolidation of tools is something you have to be really careful with, unless you're working within a platform or using a platform that, set out to try and shake it up and be more of an all-in-one tool. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more of that in the new year, and it's something worth looking out for and maybe not getting ensnared by.
Yeah. So we built our Indie CRM on a platform called High Level. So white label marketing platform, and it's all in one. And I've always been skeptical of all in one unless the total addressable market for that all in one is big enough that they can pay lots and lots of dollars towards development. And High Level happens to be that, but I was still pretty skeptical. There's tons of features in our Indie CRM that I was just, hey, you can kind of ignore this because I don't know how good it is. But what's really kind of brought me from that position a little bit is just paying very close attention to how much they ship. So I'll go and look at the change log pretty religiously, at least once a week. And there's always just constant, well-documented new features, updates to existing features. And it's like, wow, the rate of change, of improvement here, how well it's explained, how tuned those improvements are to like what I would think using the feature and what I would want to be different, is very confidence inspiring. So just pay close attention to that. Pay attention to the changelog of your tools. Pay attention to how often they ship and what their development pace is like and their documentation is like, because that's a really great indicator for like, are they actually capable of making this change? MailChimp like sort of just laid it all out on us. Hey, we have landing pages. Also, we're going to do like your ad management and like social planning. And there was just no documentation about it really. And it didn't really integrate very cleanly with what they were already doing. And it was just more like a billing change announcement than an actual like feature release.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like that's one way that you can sort of self-examine those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. My last prediction for 2025, and Cirque, this was the one that I saved for last because I think it's spicy, or maybe a little spicy. I don't know. You guys can be the judge. But I think we are going to see the short form content bubble start to approach a place where it's going to burst.
I like this prediction. What makes you think that?
I think what we're finding more and more, and we've been seeing this over the last year, is and this happens with every kind of content. This happens with every media on the internet. It happens with video. It happens with landing pages. There's this phrase like marketers ruin everything. Like, there's a lot of copycatting going on. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Modeling content that works well is a great way to make something that attracts an audience. We've talked about that plenty on the show here. But I think we're getting to a place where user behavior is starting to adapt to the way that artists are presenting their music in short form content. And so in order to get past the blindness, the content blindness or the ad blindness that's starting to happen, it's going to require you to really think outside the box. And so that's why I think we're starting to approach, not necessarily that we're going to see the bubble burst and that there's going to be, a change in the cycle next year. I think we're going to start seeing that the bubble expand just in the same way that every content format sort of has a cycle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is showing signs of fatiguing. One really great indicator that I've seen is that Gen Alpha, Gen Z is referring to their own native content format as brain rot.
Oh, yeah.
And when like the key progenitor of a content format is becoming like turned off by it, that's definitely a sign that they're calling it brain rot. Like the fact that they call their own content, like the stuff that they sort of were responsible for popularizing is brain rot. Like, yeah, that's sort of casting aspersions on the literal substrate, audience substrate on which this content runs doesn't like it.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's actually hilarious. I definitely wasn't thinking about that or really even watching for that. But you're right. That's the crazy thing. If you can see it in the way that it's being talked about, I think that proves the point even more because it's not just something that we're seeing as anecdotal or like just a general feeling online. It's actually being said. And so I think what happens next is like more blindness because of it. Like, okay, we're just not going to talk about it anymore. We're just not going to pay attention to it. So that might be what we start to get up against in 2025.
Could be.
So yeah, I'd be really interested to see what's going to happen with that. And more importantly, what I'm excited to see is like how creatives work within that, because this is really where I think it kind of separates the men from the boys or the women from the girls in how we overcome content sort of bottlenecks online, how we get more creative than our audiences think we are and make something that still catches their attention. And so I'm actually pretty interested to see, like, does that play out in the next 9 months? And if it does, like, what kind of shit really stands out and makes you go, whoa, this is cool. I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to watch.
That's my spicy take for 2025 and probably the one that, no, we'll see. We'll see if it pans out here. But these are my predictions for 2025. And I was excited to share them with you guys today. I'd be curious to know what y'all are thinking and what your outlooks for the new year are and the things that you're planning. So definitely let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you've liked the things that we've been talking about on the show recently, let us know. Shoot us an email. Leave us a review. It helps get the word out more about Creative Juice and about what we're doing at IndiePRO. So if you've been digging what we've been up to, obviously we'd appreciate the love and we'd appreciate hearing from you guys. But we'll be back next time to hear Cirque's predictions. I'm super excited because I have no idea what's coming and what's inside of that brain of his. So until then, we'll catch you guys next time on Creative Juice. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. We'll see you guys next week. Peace out, Indies.
Can y'all really feel me? Feel us. East Coast, feel us. West Coast, feel me.